Welcome to the Sisterhood Collective podcast, where we empower women to break barriers, overcome limiting beliefs, and achieve true success. I'm your host, Laurie Drummond, entrepreneur and founder of 5 successful businesses. Join me as I share proven strategies, interview inspirational leaders, and provide behind-the-scenes insights to help you level up in your business, career, and in life. Because together, we can get further faster. Okay, let's dive in. So today I wanted to do a podcast on finding your people or your tribe, because I'm really grateful that I do have a lot of friends and amazing people in my life. And I think because I've traveled so much, I've lived in different states, I've lived in different countries, and I'm quite good at touching base with those people that are important to me. And as some of you may have heard me say previously, my tribe, which is what I refer to as the women in my inner circle, they're really important to me. They all come from different phases of my life or different eras, and they are from different circles. So generally, they don't really all know each other unless I'm hosting some sort of dinner party or celebrating something. But it was by getting all my friends together just after the restrictions lifted during COVID. Now, some of you may have heard this story because this was part of the inspiration of founding the Sisterhood Collective. Anyway, being in lockdown, like many other people, I missed people in general and that connection. So I decided to throw what I called a tribe event, which was basically just a small dinner party at my house with a bunch of my really good friends. I won't tell you what we got up to and what was said, but it was fun. But as I said, they didn't really all know each other. Anyway, I hosted a few of these, and while listening to all these incredibly amazing women, I started to notice that although we're different and we even have different interests, we all have similar struggles. And I noticed we could help each other get through these struggles because we're all facing similar things, maybe at different times in our lives, or we've been there and got through it, and we can learn from each other. That's what made me think I'd love to bring more women together so we can all help each other get through the struggles, the fear, the limiting beliefs, because together we are stronger and together we can get further faster, which is something that, I generally say quite often. And you'll see that throughout the Sisterhood Collective social media, little taglines. So as you can see, friends to me are really important. But would you believe, I still get lonely? I've noticed more so, I guess, in the last maybe 6 to 12 months, I've noticed, it could be a Friday or a Saturday night, and I'm sitting with my little bestie, Lulu. For those of you that don't know, she's my 6-year-old cavoodle. But I'll be sitting with her having some dinner, maybe watching Netflix or listening to a podcast with a glass of wine, of course. And it'll be about 8 p.m. And I'm like, all right, I've done everything I need to do tonight. I'm a little bit bored. So I start to get ready for bed. And I'm like, what am I doing? It's Friday night, for goodness sake. And I'm sitting here by myself at home. 15 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have been out with people and doing something. And, I've got friends that are close by, but, they all have their lives too, and they're doing their own thing. And I don't really want to interrupt people every weekend or bug them and, hey, come hang out with me. I'm lonely. So I find it interesting that I can still feel this sense of loneliness sometimes. And, I've shared this with other people that have told me that they feel lonely, because most people know that I am quite chatty with a lot of people, and I do make friends easy because I'll basically talk to anyone if they look at me sideways. But I still feel that sense of loneliness as well. And so I wanted to share that with people because I know a lot of people feel like that as well, but you're not alone. I think that's the what I'm trying to say here. And by the way, I actually think it's okay to be a hermit, hermit up sometimes and have some alone time. But I've mentioned this to my friends sometimes, and they're like, Loz, you should have called me. I'm always keen to catch up. But as I said, you don't always want to hassle people, or, you don't even realize it's Friday night sometimes. And the next thing you know, you're going to bed at 8:30. But now these days, actually, I Zoom with Lauren for 3 hours on a Friday or a Saturday night. We share a bottle of wine together and dinner. Sometimes we're sitting there having our dinner together. And it's basically like we're out for dinner, two besties out for dinner, and we're in the same room. It just happens to be a Zoom room. So thanks, Lauren, for putting up with me on some of these weekends. And she is my bestie, and we've lived in different states or countries for our entire friendship, but we make each other a priority. We talk to each other nearly every day, to be honest. But, for friendship, you want to be there for each other, and you want to be with people that make you be a better person, and they help you, I guess, grow to be whatever you want to be and live that best life that we keep talking about. But anyway, it's important to be there for each other. And so do a lot of my friends. But of course, only if they know you need them. So I guess you have to communicate with them, right? If you're feeling lonely, you need to communicate with your friends and, try to arrange these catch-ups, so you don't feel lonely. And I guess asking for help or asking for some, a bit more time. If you're like me, my love language is quality time. I like to share time with people. It's the most important thing for me. But it brings me to making friends. And what do you do when you suddenly find yourself isolated or in a different country, or maybe your circumstances have changed? Maybe you're starting life over, a relationship change, or you've moved location for work. So how do you make friends? And I ask this because I've found myself in two situations previously where I felt like I've needed to find some new friends. And I honestly think it's so much harder as an adult. And the research says that this is the case. And I mean, my research, is pretty limited. I'm talking more about, when you Google all these things, how do you make friends? But I'm primarily going to talk from my own experience. And as you know, I'm quite a chatty girl, and I'm generally quite confident starting a random conversation with anyone, whether it's in the line at the supermarket, in a pool, at a resort, at the beach. I'm pretty much always up for a chat. Feel free to DM me anytime. I have a chat with you guys. So the first time for me was when I was in San Diego. I moved there in 2012. And one of the first things I did was sign up to a CrossFit gym. So I went to classes, with the idea of trying to meet new friends and I guess get, throw myself into the community. But the time that I was going to was around 9 o'clock in the morning. They were small classes. There's about 2 to 4 people in there, but it was the same people. But even so, it took me 6 weeks of regular training, trying to build up enough rapport and finally ask this group of people for a coffee after a class. And thankfully they said yes. But from that point, a friendship was formed. And I'm grateful. I'm really thankful because suddenly I've created a social life in a new country. But it was hard. 6 weeks is a long time. And I was training 5 days a week. And, as I said, I talked to people, but that's how long it took to be able to strike up the conversation that led to the coffee and build that, I guess, trust and get there. Anyway, that was years and years ago. Another time, I guess, and that was moving to a new country. So then let's fast forward, and it was around 2017 when I found myself, I'm back in Brisbane at this point. And I was hanging out with all my friends that were here before I had left the country, had now gone. They've all moved states or moved away. So now here I am, 2017. I found myself hanging out with people that really just weren't my people. And so I wasn't happy. I wasn't feeling that, that friendship satisfaction. There was something missing. And they weren't making me feel like a better human. And they weren't adding value. And they weren't really friends, I suppose. They were just acquaintances and some workmates that they were just there because we had similar interests. And again, for me, it was training. But I just remember having a conversation with my mum and saying, I need to find some friends. I'm feeling really lonely, Mum. And, all my friends have moved away. I'm hanging out with people that they're not my people. So what I had to do was find this new friendship group. And how do you do that, when you're in your 30s? I even know how old I was. But how do you do that? How do you start fresh? So there was one girl who I had met through the gym, and she was around my age. And I really liked the banter that we'd had on a few encounters previously. So I decided to ask her if she'd be interested in going to a champagne soiree with me a few weeks later. So I'd seen that this event was on. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. Who can go with me? So she was the one that I asked. And of course, she said yes, thankfully. And the rest of history. We had a fabulous night. Now we've been friends ever since. And I'm really, really happy that I had that courage to ask her, basically, will you be my friend? So, of course, having that completely new friendship, it's opened me up to a whole new, new circles. And she's such a beautiful soul. She adds so much value to my life. She brings me happiness. We laugh together. We go out. We have so much fun. We've got similar interests. So, hey, thanks, Dan, for being there for me. She's the one I'm talking about. But it really is hard making friends when you're older. And I think about Lauren, when she moved to Malta years ago. She has a brand new baby in tow. She's in a brand new country. Her husband's working out of the country. And Lauren's a lot quieter than I am, but she also had to get over that fear, and she had to make an effort to get out, talk to people, join mothers groups and try to find her people so she could establish a life. And that as I said, it takes a long time, and it did take a long time, but she did find her people, and I was privileged enough to visit her quite a few times in Malta over the years. I did get to meet her beautiful friends, and that's what got her through that lifestyle there, and she misses them to this day. I know she does, but friendship is just so important, and I think you really need to choose your friends and make sure that they do add value to your life, and it is a give and take, type of relationship. In fact, Lauren and I were having a conversation the other day, and we were talking about how long it takes to make friends as an adult. And in fact, there's many articles written about it, because obviously I jumped on the Google like we all do and thought, hey, how long does it take to make friends? And there's a bunch of studies out there you can see for yourself. But I know in 2018, a study by Professor Jeffrey Hall suggested that it takes the average adult roughly 50 hours of time to move from acquaintances to casual friends. And most of the studies agree. They kind of give that number between 40 to 80 hours of connection to form a friendship, obviously to varying levels, but that's a lot of hours, right? And when I think about it, one of the biggest things I don't have is time. And so many of us we fill up our time. So if you're a busy adult, how do you find the time to associate in that much time or invest that much time in that one person to form a relationship? And I guess at the end of the day, it comes down to what's important to you, and I guess prioritizing. So if friendship is important to you, and connection with people, and you're in this new space and you don't want to be lonely anymore, you need to make the effort. You need to make it a priority, but know it's going to take time, and make it a priority. Get outside of your comfort zone. Maybe try something different if that's what you want. But 40 to 50 hours, it's, if you think back to, maybe when you were in high school or just after high school, those university years, or, somewhere between in your 20s, you're out all the time. And when you're out all the time and doing things, it was easy to make friends. And then when you're socializing, friends introduce you to other friends, and you start to get these new friendship groups, I suppose. But we just don't do that these days. And I'm finding even more and more, like if I remember, let's not say how many years ago, but quite a few years ago, we used to go to barbecues all the time, and friends would have dinner parties, but it's not happening anymore. If you're ever catching up with people, I don't know, actually, people used to just drop by. Do you remember that, when someone would just drop by and it was okay? These days that you've got to text and, or message or call someone and go, is it okay if I stop by today? Oh, no, I'm going to be busy. Could you maybe make it, next week? Like we're not socializing as much. And therefore that's why it is hard to make friendships. Although I'm not the guru on this, I've just had my own experiences with it. But yeah, it's really, really hard these days. And I just really feel like it's important to have that tribe around you. And if you're feeling that way where you don't have that connection, but you're wanting it, but at the end of the day, I guess it comes down to what is important to you and prioritizing. For me, friendship and connection is important. I know so many of us can get lonely, but we just have to make it a priority. We have to get outside our comfort zone, maybe try something different if we want that connection. So just a short little chat with you guys today. It's just been something on my mind. I wish you luck with finding your people. And I would like to add, you are always welcome at the Sisterhood Collective. The whole reason we created what we call the members room was for this very reason, to form connections, to feel a sense of belonging, to learn from each other, to help each other get through good times and bad, and, move further faster. And so if that's something you feel like you want that connection, I'd love you to take a look at the members room at the Sisterhood Collective. We'd love to invite you in and be your bestie. But otherwise, that's all from me this week. Thank you so much for listening. If you are enjoying our podcast, I'd love for you to do me a little favor and write a review, or even send us a DM on the socials. I love getting that. In fact, actually this morning, I woke up to one of these and it really has literally made my day. So thank you for that person that has sent me a DM telling me what our podcasts and the things that we're doing at the Sisterhood Collective is doing for you. I appreciate it. And I'll chat to you guys soon. Thank you for joining us on the Sisterhood Collective podcast. Remember to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. And if you want to be the first to hear what is new at Sisterhood Collective, you can find out more on our Instagram, or you can sign up to receive our weekly newsletter and let the good times continue to roll. Now it's time to turn your clear vision into bold action. I'm Laurie Drummond, your host, and until next time, keep striving to live that best life. Take care, and we'll see you soon.